Welcome back, everybody, to the Wealth Easy Show, where we talk all things wealth, health, and real estate. Today, my guest, man, she is a powerhouse in the real estate industry. She is the founder and CEO of My Condo Source, one of Canada's top platinum pre-construction real estate teams. She and her team sell between 400 and 500 condos per year for the last 5 years. She has sold more than $1 billion of real estate and has a personal real estate portfolio of 19 properties. She's in the top 1% of realtors in the country. And when she's not traveling the world with top developers, she is donating her time to animal rescue. I know her as the queen of pre-construction, Sehr Mahmood.
Thanks for having me. That was quite the intro.
Well, your bio speaks words, like it's so long and I had to cut it short, but you have a massive bio. And I was really excited to have you on today because you have such an inspiring story. You know, you came to Canada in 2003 for university,
Yeah.
not knowing anybody, not having any contacts. And here you are, this powerhouse female immigrant, like kicking ass in the real estate business. Talk to us about your journey. Like, what brought you here? Like, what did you study in university and what got you into the real estate industry?
Well, I mean, I think people see a lot of my Instagram now because I started my account just in 2021 when I was pretty, I guess, established by then. So they're like, they think it's an overnight success. What people don't see is that it took 10 years of work to even get into real estate. So I came here, like you said, in 2003. I went to York for my undergrad. It was quite traumatic for me because I was actually coming from the States and I had to drop out of the university I was in at that time because my parents said they just couldn't afford it anymore. And Canada's a much cheaper option. So the university prices here were like 1/3 of the US. So I hesitantly finished my studies here, graduated with an undergrad. Then I got my first job. It was with ING Direct, which was like, it was a small customer service intro role, $29,000 a year. I was so excited. I was like, wow, I'm like going to be like rolling in the money now because I'd never even seen that kind of money before. And 2 weeks before the job, they said, oh, I'm sorry, we can't hire you anymore. And I said, what? They said, we didn't realize that you were an international student, so we're not willing to sponsor you. So that was when my first, hurdle kind of hit again. So after that, I had to find a job that I could prove that it was a job that Canadians can do. So it was quite difficult in that sense and challenging. So I was working for this small bookkeeping firm. They were willing to pay me $1,000 a month, which gradually grew to $1,200 a month eventually. And I was doing that for 3 years until, I got my status here. So it was just something I had to do. I understood that this is the journey I need to be on. I wasn't I wasn't angry. I was actually grateful at that time that I had that opportunity for them to like sponsor me, finally get my PR. And then I was like, okay, now the world is my oyster. I can decide what I want to do with my life. But an undergrad doesn't really get you very far. So then I invested in myself again. I said, let me go get my MBA. So that's what I did. I went to RBC, got a loan, $80,000, graduated in 2008 in the heart of the financial crisis with a degree in finance. So that was like another hurdle. Nobody was hiring back then. I was like, oh my God, now what do I do? And now, like at this point, I'm 80,000 in debt as well. And then, I was like kind of floundering for a few years. And then my friend was in real estate and they said, I don't know what you're really good at, but why don't you try real estate? And I was like, real estate? Like, real estate agents are the worst. Like, I can't stand realtors. They just wear like suits and ties and they think they're so cool. I don't really do anything. They're like turning lights on and off for a living. And 6 months later, I got my real estate license because it was a cheap alternative to a new industry. I didn't just get a few $1,000s and a few months of your time and you get your license. But by that time, because I'd been through so many years of grind, I said, okay, like I have to make this work. I already have my undergrad, I already have my MBA. Like this is it. There's no going back from here. So I get my real estate license. I joined the brokerage that I'm still with to this day. And on my first day, I'm like, okay, I'm a realtor now. Let's go. Like, what do I do? And they're like, do you have any contacts? And I was like, not really. They're like, do you have family who can feed you leads? I'm like, nope, my family lives overseas. I said, well, do you have money? I said, nope, I'm actually in debt. So they're like, well, you're going to go on the street and you're going to find people who want to buy, rent, and sell real estate with you. And that's what I did. So I started my journey by putting up ads on Kijiji. And there was a website back then that was popular, Craigslist.
I remember that, yeah.
And that's what I did every single morning. I used to post ads. I didn't have any listings of my own. So I used to like post other people's listings And I built a very successful rental business from there. And I'll kind of expand on that a little bit here because a lot of people say, "Oh, how did you do 100 rentals that first year?" But like, because I never told what the process was, so I'll go in it quickly. Basically, I would put up an ad for other people's listings. This was in 2012 and 2013. It was a hot rental market at that time. So I would host an open house every evening at someone else's listing. I'd get 20 people show up there from my ads. I would only tell them I'm there from 5 to 6. So it was very efficient, not taking anybody around in my car, not meeting people at different times. Everybody came at that one time with their paperwork, and I would probably get an offer close to every night.
So
So
other agents were allowing you to host open houses at their listing.
no, they
Oh,
didn't really know it was an open house.
oh,
I would
okay.
kind of just say, "Can I advertise your listing?" Most
Sure.
people say, "Sure."
Yeah.
Like I mean, like today, if I have listings, I say, "Of course, I'd love for you to like work on them,"
Yeah.
right? So what I would do is I would book the showing and take multiple people at the same time
Ah,
versus just one client.
right.
So I made my rental business very efficient.
Hmm.
So I managed to pump out like it was 120 deals in 11th
Wow.
month period. So it's very very efficient, and it really like taught me the foundations of being able to do contract work, time management, and being able to like, build those relationships with people.
Hmm.
My database grew super fast because think about it, I'm meeting 20 people a day
Yeah.
all of a sudden. And, people have this like misconception that people who come to rent don't have any money, and it's absolutely not true. A lot of the people that I built networks with were, high net worth execs who just maybe here for like a year or two from like New York or some other city, and they're not looking to buy because they're only here temporarily, they're renting. So I actually built a very good quality database, I think what I would say. And by the end of the year, I had 3,000 names in there
Wow.
of people who were interested in real estate. So even though they were rentals, they were still interested. So that's how I kind of like grew from rentals to pre-construction, because at the end of that year I said, well, I don't want to do rentals anymore. I saw my paycheck at the end of the year. It was like 100 grand, and I was like, how can I take the work that I've been putting in and take it a step further? So the biggest I think the biggest flip for me, the switch that went on, was I called up one of the rental agents who I was, listing a building. I said, how do you have five, units for rent in the same building? This was in Liberty Village. And he told me it's because I sell pre-construction. So I'm like, how is it possible every unit on the sixth floor in MLS is your listing? So I was like, I don't even know what that is, but I want to do that. So that was my first introduction to pre-construction real estate. I
Hmm.
had no idea what I was doing. And this agent said, well, do you have buyers? And I said, no, but I can find some. So I went back to my rental database, called a whole bunch of people, and found 7 people in one weekend who were interested in pre construction real estate. And, I think the advice that I would give new agents is you don't have to see the whole staircase, take it a step at a time. So what I did in the beginning, because I had no experience in pre-construction, just like many resale agents
Hmm.
out there also don't, is I kind of piggybacked on this agent. I said, can you do some of my appointments with me? And, I split the commission with him. He closed my clients, and I quickly learned the process. I watched a few appointments, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to do it on my own.
That's an amazing start into the business because I see your Instagram
Mm-hmm.
and I see you at each week you're at several openings and
Mm-hmm.
with all of the developers. You're always receiving a top award um, from one of the from a developer. I mean, I
Yeah.
saw you on your Instagram. You just received a Rolex.
Yeah.
You're off to Argentina. You're
Tomorrow
always
with
traveling
another.
someone. How do you get involved, and what was your process in getting hooked up with all of these developers? Because there was just so many developments going on in the city right now.
Yes. So I would say that my suggestion for new agents, especially who are not platinum pre construction agents, is focus on one development. And that's what I did when I first started. Because right now, everybody's looking for the next shiny project, and there's like with social media especially, it's like one day you're getting advertised one project, the other two. So even as a resale agent, you're so confused because if you follow me, I'm posting a new project every day. So how do you
Yeah.
keep focused? So I would say to become a platinum agent, it's important to pick one site and then just focus on the leftover inventory. And that's basically what I did when I first started. Every site I went to, I said, I'm not leaving this site till I do 20 deals. So I would do 20 transactions. I did that for 3 buildings in a row. And when you do that kind of volume, people hear about you, people want to meet you, and people start calling you themselves. because a lot of agents can do 2 transactions in a development, 3, but when you do 20, that then the builder's ears perk up, so to speak.
You got their attention.
You get their attention, and that's how you start getting invited in with other builders, because they know that you have that history of doing high volume. And
Mhm.
when I started, it was not a hot market, it was a slow market, so builders were having trouble moving inventory, so it was the perfect time to get in and like really slug out that hot list, basically.
Why has pre-construction become such a popular choice for potential buyers?
So there's a lot of different advantages to pre-construction. I would say, especially now in this market, like interest rates are ridiculously high. I just closed
Yes.
on a mortgage yesterday at 7.69. My heart bleeds. But I think it allows people to have that passive style of investment. So if I say I want to invest in a condo right now, but I'm not capable of getting the mortgage today, for example, at
Mhm.
these rates, or I don't want to bleed because it's going to cash flow negative very heavily in this market. However, I have 150 grand. What can I do with it? So it's not just sitting in the bank. So a lot of people are like, I want to take that money and have this passive style of investment that's going to not be developed for 4, 5, 6. And now we're seeing closings of even up to like 8, 9 years.
Wow.
So they can have their money grow. And I think pre-construction has that power of leverage, right? So if you want to get into stocks, if you want to buy $100 of Apple stock, you got to put $100 down.
Mhm.
Pre-construction, you want to buy $100 of real estate, you're putting nowadays is even 10% down. Projects are 15% down. So you're really leveraging that money because you're putting down 15% on average, stretched out over usually 2 to 3 years, but you're getting capital appreciation on the full 100%. So I think a lot of buyers, at least our clients, like we educate them on that process and they see the value in that. The other thing is deposits are spread out over time, especially now. We're seeing longer and longer deposits. Before, it was quite common to see 20% down over a year and a half. Now, most builders are doing 5% a year, and they're doing it at 10% or 15%. Last 5 is not till occupancy, or the last 10 is not till occupancy. So it really allows people to stretch it out, because I might not have 20% today, but could I come up with 5% a year? Yeah, right? So it allows people to get into the market and just get their foot in the door. And especially when I did rentals, I saw that a lot. A lot of these tenants, if you said you have 150 grand, they said no. But if you say, do you have $35,000 this year and could you save another 35 next year? They're like, yeah. So it allows them to basically start investing, slowly save up for the deposits, build their credit history in the meantime, right? At their jobs
Mhm.
that they've
Mhm.
just started at. Because right now you might have a job history of 6 months, but by the time it's built, it's at 5 years. You've built your credit, you've built, your employment history. So it's easier to get a mortgage for them.
I find, I have a real estate business too and a mortgage business, and I find people just can't get into the real estate market just because home prices are too high, the resale market is too high.
Mm-hmm.
They can't save for a down payment, and a lot of the times their parents are actually having to gift money to them. So what I like about the pre-construction, you touched on that, is that yes, you may not have 150,000 today, but you might have 30,000. And then the builders, because they're offering these long deposit
Mm-hmm.
structures, that they're able to get into the market because they can take 2 and 3 years sometimes to pay for these things and get paid while you wait,
Exactly.
because the value of real estate over time, it always goes up.
Yeah. And on top of that, we're getting some great incentives right now. So we're seeing incentives right now that were never offered before. Like a recent project is now giving 5.2% interest on your deposits.
Wow.
It's insane, right? So like why would you not invest? So A, you're getting to the market, B, you're getting incentives such as that. We're seeing $7 a square foot rental guarantee. So if you have any hesitation about like where rent's gonna be, what's gonna happen when this is built in 3 years, you have that kind of peace of mind that okay, if I buy into this building, the builder's guaranteeing $7 a square foot.
How do they guarantee that? What are they doing to guarantee that?
They're basically covering the rent for 2 years
Oh,
at that
wow.
price. So depending on how big your unit is, they multiply that and they pay you that rent essentially.
Are you finding a lot of the people that are entering into the pre-construction, are they first-time buyers, or are they buying this for investment?
Both of them. I'd say more investment,
Mhm.
but I personally, in my business, educated a lot of first-time buyers because I was a rental agent. So
Yes.
that was my whole bread and butter, was educating my tenants on why you should get into pre-construction and how it is that feasible way for millennial to get into the market because otherwise they just can't.
Yeah.
But our general database right now, it's a lot of repeat clients or
Mhm.
investors because they've seen the traction over the past few years. And while the market is slow today, yes, if you look at the trajectory of real estate in a 50-year time frame, every 5 to 10 years, it's still gone up. It's like a rubber band. It goes up and down, but in general, it's going up. So think of real estate as being a decade trader, not a day trader. I tell all my investors, don't buy this today in the hopes of doing an assignment 2 years from now. Think that you need to hold on for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you'll always be okay. So, educating the clients today is what's helping us still do deals, while a lot of agents are actually still are struggling because they say our buyers don't want to buy right now, but we're still doing deals because we educate them.
That's a really great point that you make. Being a decade trader,
Yeah.
not a day trader. You know, um, I was in the wealth management business. I managed a portfolio for 17 years. And I had clients calling me sometimes on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, looking at their portfolio. Oh, it went
Mhm.
down, it's gone up. It's, people saying, what should I do? It's gone down. It's like, do you look at your real estate each week and see what it's done?
Mhm.
No. Why? You're not selling. Are you retiring? No, you're not. Stop looking at this. You got to look at 10, 15 years out because the trend line for real estate, and all of my high net worth clients, they all made their money in real estate over time because the trend line is always pointing upward.
Mhm.
There are so many projects going on in the city right now. I mean, I'm not even sure how many developers are doing projects
I
right now in the
think this
city.
fall we launched about 40 sites.
There's a lot. I know.
It's a lot of developments right now.
So how do you direct your clients into which site they should invest in, and what are your principles? You have like 3 key principles when you show an investor. I know number one is location. I see
Mhm.
that you talk about location. Even
Mhm.
anyone in real estate, location, location, location.
Mhm.
What are some of the things you talk to your clients about when you're looking at a project to invest in?
So I think it all comes down to what are their goals? Like when do they want to take occupancy? Because there's a lot of people who will say, "Oh, I'm buying this. I see this at a new site that I'm selling at Young and St. Clair." The demographic there is a lot of people who are from that area who are
Mhm.
looking to buy for their kids, which is very different from investors who I'm selling pre-construction sites in Hamilton, for example, who are just pure investors and they have no attachment to the area or anything. So it really depends on the goals of that client. Are they looking for something with a long closing? Do they want something that's ready quicker because they want to move in it themselves, or they want one of the children to live there? We have some investors who say, "Oh, I want a downtown condo that's ready within 4 years because my daughter is going to be ready for university at that
Right.
time." So it comes down to their personal goals, and then also how much of a down payment do they have? Because, like I said, a lot of the projects have different varying deposit structures. Like Madame is a builder that is pretty much doing 10% down on all their sites, whereas some other builders will be doing 15 or 20. So depending on how much deposits we have to play with, we can kind of like mix and match. I
Mhm.
also look for obviously areas that are in, going through a lot of high growth right now. So Etobicoke is one of them. So the region has basically designated them as an economic hub, and they're pumping a lot of money into that neighborhood right now.
Mhm.
So there's about 30 buildings slated to come up there in the next 10 years. 60,000 new jobs, 60,000 new residents, 30 new developments. So areas like that, right next to transit, we know they're going to appreciate and do well. So if someone says, I want something at this price point and I'm flexible with my location, that might be a good option.
Mhm. Mhm.
I personally have invested in Young and Eglinton, 3 condos because of the LRT that's, pretty much
Yes.
nearly complete now at this time.
Yeah.
Because I know it's like the only four-way stop that goes all the way from Scarborough to Mississauga. It goes all the way to Pearson Airport. So it's going to become like a four-way hub, right? Like before, if you look at Young and Bloor, the reason why it's so expensive is because it was a four-way stop.
Correct.
Young and Eglinton is now going even further than that because it's going all
Mhm.
the way to Pearson, all the way to Scarborough. So I personally love that neighborhood. I invested, into 3 different developments a few years ago,
Mhm.
and they've all done well.
Good. What are some common mistakes that you see people are making when purchasing pre-construction?
I think that the most common one is that they're going solely for price. So they'll say, "Oh, we saw this development in this neighborhood and it's priced $50,000 cheaper than that development." You have to look at the reputation of the builder and who is building this condo, because when you have names like Pemberton, Tridel, Menkes, yeah, you might be paying a little bit more, but you have that security that they're not going to think that the condo is actually going to get built, that they can take those renderings and transform them into that building that they've promised you. So, I see a lot of investors and they say, oh, well, we saw this project and it's my first time like developer. And I say, no, there's no guarantee, especially in this market where costs are rising so high. Because what we're seeing is that if they don't get the shovel in the ground fast enough, they actually can't even build at the price that they sell today. So I've
Hmm.
seen that happen with 2 or 3 developments now that we sold in 2021 where they didn't start building. And now in 2023, getting close to 2024, it's looking a little bit iffy because they didn't get the shovel in the ground. And I don't know if they can still build at the price that they sold at back then. So it's very important which builder are you going with? It's not always about the price points. The other mistake is people always seem to want to buy in something that they want to live in themselves. And I'm the perfect example of that because, like, I love a condo with a very nice view. I want to face a lake, I want to be on a high floor. But I tell people when you're buying for investment, it's not always necessary because you're paying a heavy premium to get those views. A water view, just for example, in downtown Toronto, will cost you about 80 to 100 grand more than something on the north side with like a less desirable view. Like, are you going to get that premium in rents? No, you're going to get maybe $100 more a month. It's not even going to close to cover. So you have to think about things like that. Don't buy into a location that you want to live in, buy into an area that's undergoing, transforming, and going through a lot of growth where your money is going to appreciate for you.
Now, that's a really good point. Because I've sold a few pre-construction, especially
Mm-hmm.
in Liberty Village,
Mm-hmm.
and some of my clients were looking at, what do we want? Do we want a lake view, or do we want a city view?
Yeah.
And again, it all comes down to what kind of rent are you going to generate
Mm-hmm.
from having a lake view versus the cost that you're paying,
Yeah.
right? I purchased in Hamilton in the Louis
Mm-hmm.
Vuitton building.
Mm-hmm.
I chose a lake view
Mm-hmm.
just because if I ever decide to ever live in that,
Mm-hmm.
I want the lake view.
Mm-hmm.
As an investment purpose, I think if someone is looking at, I'm going to choose, I have 2 or 3 different units that I'm looking at all around the same size, but I got a lake view, I think that unit would rent faster than the other units. So
Mm-hmm.
I think again, it goes all depending on what is your objective.
Yeah. And then, I see some purchasers and they say, oh, we don't want to buy a unit if we can buy parking. A lot of the developments now, you can't buy parking unless you're getting a 2 bedroom. But I tell people that, listen, this is downtown Toronto. The builder is charging $150,000 for the parking spot. You're never going to make that money back on the
Yeah.
monthly rental that you get for that with the maintenance and so forth. Don't worry about the parking. No, we want parking because they're thinking about their own lifestyle and how they need a car. They're not thinking about that the tenant might be somebody who's just working, a few minutes walk in the financial district. They don't need that spot. So they forego an opportunity because of the fact that they can't buy parking. So that's another one that I've seen.
What advice do you have for someone that is looking to enter into the pre-construction market?
I think that like we talked about, like it's very important which builder you're going with. I would also say it's very important to work with a platinum pre-construction agent who knows all the developments really well and understands the incentives and knows the differences between different projects. A lot of people will want to buy pre-construction with their resale agent who might be their mother, father, brother, sister, but those people don't have access to inventory at the beginning stage, so you might be paying a higher price than the platinum agents. You might not get the same incentives as the platinum agents, and they just don't know which developments are even launching when, so they think that they're getting in the
Mhm.
beginning, but really we sold that 3 weeks ago and all the best units are gone. The other thing I would say is a lot of people, because we do a lot of online advertising, they say, we want to work with the builder. Are you the builder? I said, no, we're better than the builder because we're platinum agents and we're working for you. When you walk into a developer's office, the reps who are there are working for the builder. They're not educating you on the agreement. They're not going through the agreement and saying, oh, this could get capped or you need to get this removed through the lawyer. And they're not doing any of that. They're representing the builder. So they'll give you like a nice fluffy version of the agreement and go over it, but they're not on your side. So you gotta know that you gotta work with a platinum agent who's gonna represent you and look out for those incentives and be able to offer you and be able to see what can I get changed, what's missing from this agreement. and really guide you in the right direction.
So I know my condo source is known as a platinum VIP agent.
Mhm.
What kind of service can your clients expect from you and your team?
I think the first thing is good education on the sites to be able to fit their needs, and then getting them in that platinum stage. We hear about these developments much before any sort of renderings are released, much before the advertising from the builders are out, right? So we know about it like 6 months in advance. So if we have somebody who's like ready to invest and we know what they're looking for, we can get them into that platinum stage. Right now, the market's a little bit slower, but if you take 2021 as an example, you could not get a unit in a building unless you're a platinum agent. Like, pre-construction real estate works in phases. So first it's friends and family, next is the platinum sales, and the leftover inventory, which in a hot market is very, very far and few in between, is what goes to the general realtors. So if you say I want like a 1+den south high floor, they might say, we have like a north facing 2 bedroom on a low floor, take it or leave it. Right. So when you get in with us, because of our history of sales with them in the past, we're able to get our clients exactly what they're looking for.
You're getting first dibs on it.
First dibs on it. And what I've seen this year is that even though the market is slower in pre-construction, no doubt, it's not a hidden fact, the projects that have good success, there's been about 4 or 5 projects this year that have been very hot. We even had a project just on the waterfront that just released a week ago. And while it's a big building with a lot of units, everybody wanted, for example, the south facing 3 bedroom. So there's still very hot layouts that you can get your hands on if you're not a platinum agent. So you could walk into the sales office and get a unit, but you're not getting the best unit, even in this market.
What does it take to become a platinum agent?
So, like I said, you have to work on past developments for that specific builder and just showcase that you're able to do volume, which is what I would say is the best way to get in. So, take one of their inventory sites, perform on that, and say, I want first access to the next development. You do that with a few builders and just keep it rolling like that. And that's exactly what I did back in 2014.
Amazing. So you've developed a masterclass.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of, the reason why I did that short, like 30, 40 minute masterclass is because we do a lot of online advertising, and it's very hard for us and our small team to always keep going through the same information again and again. So when we get an online lead, we send them our video and say, hey, just watch this. You kind of get the basis and then come back with your questions. And it just helps educate them and prepare them a little bit for the phone call.
Let's go off topic because you have a passion for rescuing animals.
Yeah.
And we have Pablo here today.
We do.
Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
And he's a rescue?
He's a rescue from Mexico. So I've loved animals ever since I was a kid. When I grew up in Pakistan, there's like stray dogs and cats everywhere. So it's not like North America, like you open your front door and you'll see like 5, 10 of them. And ever since I was a kid, I was always just bringing them into the house, hiding them in my room. My mom would have to like pick them up and take them outside again. So I think that passion for animals was there from when I was very, very young. And now I just feel that, I've reached this level of success where I'm not just worrying. The problem with I think when you're younger and when you're building yourself is you're so focused on like, how do I survive? How do I pay my rent? How do I pay my bills? That like, even though you have those passions, you're not able to really like delve into them because you're struggling on your own to like, make ends meet for yourself or your family and your kids and so forth. So for me now in these past few years, I really think about like, what is my purpose? I've reached, a certain level of success that I'm looking for. And why was I given this opportunity to come this far where others haven't? There has to be something greater than myself. And for me, that's animals. So, last year I did a spay and neuter clinic for 137 dogs and cats. And when you go into these third world countries, Mexico, for example, has 18 million street dogs. It's a
Wow.
very, very large number. They're roaming around with no food, no vet care. They have diseases, their fur is falling off, they have ticks and fleas. They're not living the life that you think a puppy is living. So it's just better for them not to be born into those situations in those countries. Like in Pakistan, when I lived there, the government would pay you 100 rupees, it was equivalent of like $1.50 to kill a dog because they just didn't even know how to take care of the problem.
Wow.
So there's all these people out there brutally murdering dogs just to get take the body and show and get money. So, when you see things like that, it like really like I think has an impact on you. So I thought like what's the best way to do this? People don't know this, but one spay and neuter of like a dog, one dog can reproduce a dog and its puppies can reproduce 67,000 dogs in 6 years.
Wow.
So, because they have 2 litters a year,
Yeah.
each litter has 6 to 7. So, when you think about a year later, each one of those are then having 6 to 7 puppies. So, that's what the number is. For cats, it's even more. One cat and its offspring produces 420,000 cats in 7 years.
Wow.
So, when you say I'm spaying and neutering 100
Yeah.
animals, now you're talking about 4 million animals not being born. So, it has a big impact.
Well, you just did an event in Mexico, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
that was the event that I hosted. It was a spay and neuter clinic. So set
Yeah.
that up completely from scratch. So it was quite a journey, and it was one that I really enjoyed. Looking for vets, getting all the medications organized, getting a venue, doing advertising there in the villages. So basically, we offered free spay and neuter for the poor people in the villages because they just don't have the money to take their pets to like a vet. And I'm gonna have my second one in December. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Amazing.
And it's like I have such a big passion for animals, and it's really a way to give back to the community and try and do something bigger than myself. And it's not just dogs and cats. Like I love all animals, and I'm really like making a conscious effort to really advocate for animal welfare because I see the amount of abuse and cruelty that there is in all the industries, fur, farming, all of that. So I just want them to have kind of like a voice. And now that I have this platform, I'm like, how can I use it for a greater good? So it's about like, people might say, oh, well, it's just, one animal. But no, it actually impacts, like I said, you spay and neuter one, it's impacting thousands and thousands from there. So if we can all take an action, to move the needle just a little bit, long way away, it's like the size of a continent. So I think it's important to like, use your voice and use your platform that you have, whether you have 10 followers or 1,000 or a million, to really say how you feel and advocate and show your differences and be outspoken for what you believe in.
That's amazing. And you fund all this yourself, right? You don't raise any. There's no charity, no foundation.
So
You fund all this yourself.
yeah, so last year I did a fundraiser. So I raised the money for the charity, and this is the importance of being successful. So a lot of the money that I raised was from developers, right? Because when you have that relationship and you're selling for them, what are they going to say? Oh, sorry, we're not going to support your charity cause. So I use the success that I've built to be able to get what I truly want, which is like, awareness for dogs and like funds for dogs. Now this year I'm going to do it on my own. I decided that it's like a year that's been hard for a lot of people, and I feel good because I had a successful year, so I'm funding it on my own. But last year, I mean, I raised it purely from the real estate industry.
And are you going back to Mexico to do this again? Or
Yes, I'm going to go back to Mexico and do it just because it's an area that now I'm familiar with. I've built some contacts there, so it's easier to set up. I had a lot of challenges last year that I feel are going to be ironed out this year. So I'm looking forward to doing my next one. And other than the spay and neuter, I also bring back dogs from there. So every time that I travel, I try and bring back 2 to 3 animals. In the last, 3 years, I've brought back about 20 of them and found them homes here. And he's one of those. He's one that I was supposed to get adopted out, but ended up keeping him.
I was going to ask you, what was it about Pablo that made you want to keep him?
Well, other than his adorable face, I think it was just the fact that he fit in with my lifestyle. He's a very quiet dog. He doesn't bark. I have to rescue cats as well. And I saw that, he was non-reactive to them because I'm in a condo and I didn't want like him like chasing them around and everybody being stressed out, So it was very calm and the dynamic was really good. So I thought like he's one that I need to keep.
You have such a busy life. You're always traveling. You work so hard. How do you balance your personal life with your business life?
I mean, listen, entrepreneurship is a series of challenges, and we're going to have pressure in our lives at all points. So I've kind of like understood that. And the way that I balance it is to have a very strict schedule. So if it's in my schedule, it's going to get done. So I know, what I'm doing 2 weeks in advance. So even though when I'm traveling, and I also multitask a lot. So, if I'm driving, for example, that's when I listen to my developer pitches because I want to learn the site and I know I'll have a team training the next day. So I use the time in a car when I'm driving to listen to the audio recording of the meeting that I was just at. I'll record it, I'll like do all my homework on the drive. So by really managing my time really, really well, I'm able to fit it all in pretty well, I think.
How can people find you? I know you're very active on social media.
Yeah, you can follow our YouTube channel or Instagram at my condo source.
And Instagram is just, it's my condo source.
My condo source, and my personal one, if you'd like to follow, it's Sehr_MCS. I'll be posting a lot in December with the charity clinic that I'm going to be running in Mexico. So follow along.
Amazing. Well, this has been really great. I hope that my listeners out there have picked up some very valuable tips. And I think, I want to say that I'm really inspired from someone who came into the country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well your English was when you came in 20 years ago, but you didn't make any excuses for yourself.
No.
You went to school, you put yourself through school, and you've become this icon in the real estate world. You're in the top 1%. And I just find I hear too many people that are making excuses for themselves of why they can't succeed. And to me, this is just laziness. It's excuses. It's bullshit. What I love about you is that you're driven and you have ambition. And I think my listeners out there can learn something from you, that if you want a dream, if you have a dream, if you want something, the only thing stopping you is you.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you did say is that you invested in yourself when you're talking in the very beginning of the real estate. You invested in yourself. And I heard you on another podcast, and there's not a project or a building in Toronto that you don't know the insides and the floor plan of every building down there.
Yeah.
That takes time.
It takes a lot of time
to learn all that stuff, but that's something that made you in the top 1%. So the people that are listening out there right now, the only thing slowing you down or stopping you is you. You got to put the time in, invest in yourself. If this is something that you want to do, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in investments, or whatever you're trying to do.
It's about having patience and persistence. I think those are the two pieces that are the most important. You got to keep showing up every single day, and you got to be very, very patient and persistent, because a lot of people think, oh, it's a slow real estate market, so I'll just take some time off. No, like use this time to elevate yourself more than any other time. Actually, it should be the opposite. You should be working even harder. So for example, when I was a rental agent, I said, how can I get into sales, right? Because I didn't want to be a rental agent forever. So I used the time that I would be taking people to showings to really learn the inside of every building, made my knowledge level so high that, when people would call me, I didn't even need to show them the unit anymore. I knew what every floor plan was like. There were so many deals that I did from people who were coming here from Ottawa, New York, Montreal, said, oh, I just got a job, I'm moving there. I didn't even need to go into the unit because I know, okay, what are you looking for? I know I have the best unit for you. And they would show up and they'd be like, wow, this is great.
But that work made you stand out above the rest, because I think there's over 70,000 agents on
73,000
agents on Treb, and there's only about 85% that do 0 to 5 transactions per year.
Yeah.
So the other 15% are doing the rest of the transactions, and you are in that top 1%.
Right.
But you had to do the work.
You have to do the work, and you have to be very, very consistent. You have to know your product. You have to know your craft. You have to be okay with rejection. You have to understand that every single day you're going to get rejected. You're going to be told no's. You have to be okay with 99% of people saying no to you every single day, and still having that motivation to wake up the next day and start all over. And I think one thing that I did very effectively was, I'd start every day at 0. When I did my first 100 deals that year after my rentals, I wasn't like, oh, I did 100 deals, I'm good. No, I'd wake up with that 0 mentality every single day, where I'm starting the day at 0 again, as if I have nothing and no deals in the bank.
You're hungry.
Very, very hungry. And to this day, I operate the same way. If I did 3 deals last night, I'm not going to be like, oh, let me have a chill morning. No, I start every day with that same passion and desire, because I know that I need to work hard now, so I don't need to work this hard 15 years from now. So I want to milk that time.
It's so good that you say that, because I know realtors out there. They close a big deal.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I'm going to take the next 3 months off.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to get those deals all the time.
Yeah.
Like you get that one deal, now you got to go, you got to build on that momentum. Keep it going.
Yeah.
Don't slow down, don't stop, because just because you closed one doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean the next one's going to be coming around the corner. And then you take that time off, and then 3, 4, 5 months later, you're like striving for money. You're like, where am I going to get my next deal
Yeah.
from?
And like in 2021, and I keep using that as an example because it was a very hot year, we grinded harder that year than any other year and really banked in those deals because now is the perfect time to realize why you worked so hard. Because when the deals become harder and they become half of the volume that you did before, you're like, oh, thank God I worked really hard then. So you got to take advantage of every opportunity that you get. You can't say, oh, this year was my best year versus last year. I'll stop now. No, keep going because 2023 might hit where you have a slow year. And then what? So, 2024 might be slow. So you need to bank in every deal that you can get and keep at that same level of motivation because you never know what might change when for you.
Absolutely. So what's next for you? You seem to have you've accomplished so much. You're in the top of your industry. You're rescuing dogs. What's next?
I think to keep expanding my team and trying to build more agents under me and showing value to them so that they can grow their businesses and that way I can also grow my team and have more time for animal rescue, hopefully open a sanctuary one day which will
Oh.
require a big amount of funds obviously. So
Mhm.
for me like success is very important because to achieve my bigger goals like bigger than just a spay and neural clinic once a year, like I have to keep growing and keep expanding.
Oh, that's
I think
awesome.
that would be great.
I think this has been really great. I hope my listeners actually learn something from you. And if they're looking to get into pre-construction,
Mm-hmm.
they can reach out to you because you know all the builders and you know all the projects that are going on in the city.
Yeah.
Don't forget to follow on YouTube if you want to watch, and you can connect with us on social media through Instagram and TikTok. We're out of time for today, so take care of yourself and take care of your wealth.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sahar.